If losing 40 pounds, training for an Ironman, and eating perfectly clean still didn't fix your cholesterol, you're not broken. The problem isn't you. It's that most heart advice skips the one thing that actually changes what happens inside your arteries. Today, you'll learn the meal pattern backed by decades of human data that lowers dangerous cholesterol, calms inflammation, and protects arteries without extreme restriction. And if you've ever felt confused, frustrated, or scared of food because of conflicting heart advice, what I'm about to show you will finally make sense. I'm Dr. Megan Foster. I've spent over 2 decades in surgical practice working with patients facing heart disease, vascular conditions, and metabolic disorders. This isn't medical advice, it's education. But I need to tell you something that changes everything about how you think about protecting your heart. Heart disease isn't just about cholesterol numbers on a lab report. Plaque forms when three things happen together. The artery lining becomes inflamed, cholesterol particles become oxidized, and blood vessels lose their flexibility. Cholesterol doesn't damage arteries by itself. It becomes dangerous in the wrong internal environment. That's why eliminating fat doesn't solve the problem. And it's exactly why the type of fat you eat matters more than most people realize. This video isn't about cutting everything out, it's about replacing the wrong inputs with biologically protective ones. Same calories, completely different arterial response. Here's what you'll walk away with today. You'll understand how to build meals that lower arterial inflammation, stabilize LDL and triglycerides, improve the function of your artery lining, create calmer blood flow after eating, and eliminate the anxiety around so called heart healthy eating. This isn't about perfection, it's a pattern, and it works even if you've struggled for years. Before we go deeper, I want to mention something. If you're looking for a simple, science based framework for protecting your heart and longevity without extremes, I've put together a new longevity guide that walks through this exact approach step by step. It's based on the same large human studies we'll discuss today. Not trends, not fear, not restriction. You'll find the link in the description. No pressure. It's just there if you want clarity instead of confusion. Now, let me explain why this matters so much. I've seen too many patients terrified of fat, exhausted by restriction, doing everything they were told was right, and still watching their risk climb. Fear doesn't heal arteries, understanding does, and that's what we're here for. Let's talk about the number one heart protective meal pattern, supported by large scale human research, not a single food. A strategic replacement pattern that works. This meal is built around unsaturated fats, not saturated ones. That means olive oil, nuts, seeds, and fatty fish. These fats lower LDL cholesterol. They reduce LDL oxidation. They improve the function of your endothelial lining, the inner surface of your arteries. Large, long term studies show that when saturated fat is replaced, not removed, with unsaturated fat, heart attacks and total mortality drop significantly. Same calories, opposite outcome. This is where a lot of confusion starts. People here eat less fat and assume all fats are the problem, but the research tells a different story. When you swap saturated fat for unsaturated fat, your body responds differently at the cellular level. Your LDL particles become less prone to oxidation. Your artery walls become less inflamed. Your blood vessels maintain better flexibility. And this isn't theory. This comes from studies that followed hundreds of thousands of people for decades. They ate real food, they lived real lives, and the data was clear. The type of fat mattered far more than the total amount. Now let's talk about nuts and seeds. This is where many people get stuck. Nuts aren't just snacks. In the research, they behave like protective heart foods. People who eat nuts several times per week consistently show lower heart attack rates, better lipid profiles, and no meaningful weight gain. They increase satiety and reduce inflammation, not the other way around. I know what you're thinking. Nuts are high in calories. Won't they cause weight gain? The evidence says no. When people add nuts to their diet without specifically trying to overeat, They naturally compensate by eating slightly less of other things. The result? No significant weight change, but a measurable improvement in cardiovascular risk markers. Nuts contain healthy fats, fiber, plant sterols, and antioxidants. They're calorie dense, yes, but they're also incredibly satiating. A small handful keeps you full far longer than the same calories from refined carbs. That changes everything about how your body handles energy throughout the day. Fiber rich plants are the next piece. Fiber changes how cholesterol behaves in your body. It improves cholesterol transport. It reduces LDL oxidation. It supports gut driven lipid regulation. Vegetables, legumes, and whole plants don't cancel out fats. They optimize their effect inside your arteries. Think about it this way: when you eat fiber alongside fat, your body processes that fat differently. The fiber slows absorption. It binds to bile acids in your gut, which forces your liver to pull more cholesterol out of your bloodstream to make new bile. The result is lower circulating LDL. But there's more. Fiber feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Those bacteria produce short chain fatty acids that have anti inflammatory effects throughout your body, including in your arteries. This isn't just about cholesterol numbers, it's about creating an internal environment where your arteries can stay healthy. Polyphenols are next. These compounds protect the endothelial lining of your arteries. They're found in olive oil, berries, herbs and spices, and colorful plants. They don't scrub plaque away like some kind of internal cleaning crew. They slow damage and support repair. That's what actually matters for long term heart health. Your endothelial lining is incredibly important. It's a single layer of cells that lines the inside of your blood vessels. When it's healthy, it regulates blood pressure, prevents clots, and keeps inflammation under control. When it's damaged, that's when plaque starts to form. Polyphenols help keep that lining healthy. They reduce oxidative stress. They improve nitric oxide production, which helps blood vessels relax and maintain proper blood flow. They even help prevent LDL cholesterol from sticking to artery walls in the first place. This is why foods like extra virgin olive oil show up so consistently in heart health research. It's not just the fat content, it's the polyphenols that come with it. Same thing with berries. Same thing with herbs like rosemary and oregano. These aren't superfoods, they're just foods that happen to contain compounds that support arterial health. Protein quality matters too. This pattern includes moderate protein, not overload. Fish, legumes, and plant forward sources consistently outperform heavy, processed meats, especially when inflammation is already present. This is why Mediterranean style eating wins in long term studies. Processed meats contain compounds that promote inflammation. They're often high in sodium. They're frequently paired with refined carbs, and they don't provide the same beneficial nutrients you get from fish or legumes. Fish, especially fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines, provides omega-3 fatty acids that have potent anti-inflammatory effects. Legumes provide fiber, plant protein, and minerals without the inflammatory compounds found in processed meats. This isn't about demonizing meat. It's about recognizing that not all protein sources affect your body the same way. Now let's address refined carbs. This isn't an anti-carb approach, it's anti-refined carb. Replacing saturated fat with sugar or white flour does nothing for your arteries. Replacing it with unsaturated fat dramatically improves outcomes. Substitution matters. This point gets missed constantly. Low-fat diets became popular in the 1980s and 1990s, but when people cut fat, they replaced those calories with something. Often it was refined carbs, white bread, pasta, low-fat cookies, and crackers packed with sugar. The research on those diets was disappointing. People didn't see the heart benefits they expected, and we now understand why. Refined carbs spike blood sugar. That triggers inflammation. They're low in nutrients. They don't satisfy hunger well, so people end up eating more. The lesson isn't that carbs are bad, it's that replacing one problem with another problem doesn't help. But when you replace saturated fat with unsaturated fat, while keeping refined carbs low, the results are dramatic. LDL drops, triglycerides improve, inflammation markers decrease. The arteries respond positively. For many people, especially those with genetic risk, diet alone isn't enough. And that's where statins come in. Statins lower LDL production in your liver. Unsaturated fats reduce inflammation and oxidation. Together, they often create a multiplicative benefit, not a compromise. This is physiology, not failure. I want to be clear about this because there's a lot of stigma around taking medication. Some people feel like needing a statin means they've failed at lifestyle changes. That's not true. Some people have genetic variants that cause their liver to produce more LDL than diet can fully control. For those people, a statin can be life saving. And here's what the research shows: when people combine a statin with the dietary pattern I'm describing, they often see better outcomes than either approach alone. The statin lowers LDL, the diet reduces inflammation and oxidation. The result is healthier arteries. This isn't about choosing medication over lifestyle, it's about using every effective tool available. Your arteries don't care whether protection comes from food or medicine, they just respond to what works. Let me walk you through what this actually looks like on a plate. Not a strict meal plan, a flexible pattern you can adapt. Start with a base of vegetables, not a side dish, a foundation. Half your plate or more. These provide fiber, polyphenols, and volume without a lot of calories. They make meals satisfying. Add a source of unsaturated fat. This could be olive oil drizzled over your vegetables. It could be a portion of fatty fish. It could be a handful of nuts or seeds. This is where satiety comes from. This is what makes the meal feel complete. Include moderate protein. Fish is excellent. Legumes like lentils or chickpeas work great. Even poultry is fine if it's not fried or heavily processed. You don't need huge portions, just enough to meet your body's needs. If you're including carbs, choose whole food sources: quinoa, sweet potato, whole oats, beans. These come with fiber and nutrients that refined carbs lack. They create a steadier blood sugar response. They support gut health. That's it. That's the pattern. Vegetables, unsaturated fats, moderate protein, whole food carbs if you want them, no counting, no restriction, just strategic choices. Let me give you a specific example. Grilled salmon with roasted vegetables tossed in olive oil, a side of lentils, and a handful of walnuts over a simple salad. That meal checks every box. Unsaturated fats from the salmon, olive oil, and walnuts. Fiber from the vegetables and lentils, moderate protein, polyphenols from the olive oil, and any herbs you use. Zero refined carbs. Another example: a large salad with mixed greens, cherry tomatoes, cucumber, chickpeas, avocado, pumpkin seeds, and a lemon olive oil dressing. Again, every element supports arterial health. The fiber, the unsaturated fats, the plant protein, the polyphenols. One more: stir-fried vegetables with tofu or shrimp, cooked in a small amount of sesame oil, served over cauliflower rice or a small portion of brown rice topped with sesame seeds. Same pattern, different flavors. You can adapt this to any cuisine: Mediterranean, Asian, Latin American, Middle Eastern. The principles stay the same. The flavors change based on what you enjoy. Let's talk about what this looks like in practice, because understanding the theory is one thing, but knowing how to apply it in your daily life is where real change happens. Maybe you start with a breakfast. This is where a lot of people struggle because traditional breakfast foods in many cultures are built around refined carbs and saturated fat. Toast with butter, pastries, bacon, and eggs. These create exactly the inflammatory response we're trying to avoid. Instead of toast with butter and jam, you have oatmeal with ground flaxseed, walnuts, and berries. Let me break down why this works. The oats provide soluble fiber called beta glucan, which has been shown in multiple studies to lower LDL cholesterol. The flax and walnuts provide omega-3 fatty acids and other unsaturated fats that reduce inflammation. The berries add polyphenols, particularly anthocyanins, which protect your endothelial cells from oxidative damage. Another breakfast option could be a vegetable omelet made with one whole egg and two egg whites, cooked in olive oil, filled with spinach, tomatoes, and mushrooms, served with half an avocado and a side of berries. The egg provides protein and some healthy fats. The olive oil adds monounsaturated fat. The avocado contributes even more healthy fats plus fiber. The vegetables provide antioxidants and fiber. Or consider Greek yogurt topped with ground chia seeds, sliced almonds, fresh figs, and a drizzle of honey. The yogurt provides protein and probiotics for gut health. The chia seeds offer omega 3s and fiber. The almonds add monounsaturated fats and vitamin E. The figs contribute natural sweetness plus fiber and polyphenols. Lunch could be a grain bowl with quinoa, roasted vegetables, chickpeas, tahini dressing, and pumpkin seeds. This might seem simple, but each component plays a role. Quinoa is a complete protein and provides fiber. The roasted vegetables, let's say bell peppers, zucchini, and red onion, offer vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. The chickpeas add plant protein and additional fiber. Or a large salad with mixed greens as the base, grilled chicken or salmon for protein, avocado for healthy fats, cherry tomatoes and cucumber for freshness and nutrients, olive oil and lemon, dressing for flavor and more healthy fats, and a side of lentil soup for extra protein and fiber. Another lunch idea is a Mediterranean style wrap using a whole grain tortilla, hummus as a spread, grilled vegetables like eggplant and red pepper, a sprinkle of feta cheese, olives for healthy fats, and fresh herbs like parsley and mint. Dinner might be baked salmon, a huge serving of roasted Brussels sprouts and carrots and olive oil, and a small portion of wild rice. The salmon provides omega 3 fatty acids that are powerful anti inflammatory agents. Studies show that people who eat fatty fish regularly have lower rates of sudden cardiac death. Or vegetable stir fry with tofu, cashews, and brown rice. Use a variety of colorful vegetables like broccoli, snap peas, carrots, and red cabbage. Cook them in a small amount of sesame oil or avocado oil. Add firm tofu for plant protein. Toss in cashews for crunch and additional healthy fats. Another dinner option is grilled chicken breast seasoned with herbs, served alongside a large Greek salad with cucumbers, tomatoes, red onion, olives, and a little feta dressed with olive oil and red wine vinegar, plus a side of roasted sweet potato. Snacks are important too because they keep your energy stable and prevent you from getting so hungry that you make poor choices. A handful of almonds provides healthy fats, vitamin E, and magnesium. Carrot sticks with hummus offer fiber, protein, and unsaturated fats. An apple with almond butter combines fiber from the fruit with healthy fats from the nuts, creating a balanced snack that keeps you full. Other good snack options include a small handful of walnuts, which are particularly high in omega 3 fatty acids, or celery with tahini, or bell pepper slices with guacamole, or a small bowl of berries with a few unsalted pistachios. The key is combining some fiber or protein with healthy fats to create satiety. What about eating out? This is where a lot of people feel like they lose control, but you can follow this pattern anywhere if you know what to look for. At a restaurant, start by scanning the menu for fish or chicken dishes. Look for grilled, baked, or roasted preparation methods rather than fried. When you find something that looks good, you can usually make simple modifications. Ask for vegetables instead of fries. Request olive oil on the side instead of butter for your bread or vegetables. Choose a side salad with olive oil and vinegar dressing instead of a cream-based soup. If you're at an Italian restaurant, you might choose grilled branzino with sautéed spinach and a side of white beans and olive oil, or a large arugula salad with grilled chicken, shaved parmesan, lemon, and olive oil. Skip the bread basket or have one small piece without loading it with butter. At a Mexican restaurant, fajitas are often a good choice. You're getting grilled protein and vegetables. Skip the flour tortillas or limit yourself to one and load up on the vegetables. Add guacamole for healthy fats. Go easy on the cheese and sour cream. A side of black beans gives you fiber and plant protein. At an Asian restaurant, look for dishes that feature vegetables and lean protein without heavy sauces. Steamed fish with ginger and scallions. Chicken and broccoli with the sauce on the side so you control how much you use. Tofu and vegetable stir fry. Brown rice instead of white if it's available. Edamame as an appetizer gives you plant protein and fiber. At a steakhouse, you can absolutely make this work. Order the salmon or lean cut of steak if you want beef, but make it a smaller portion, like a 6-ounce filet instead of a 16-ounce ribeye. Then load up on sides: grilled asparagus, sautéed mushrooms, a side salad with olive oil dressing, Brussels sprouts if they have them. The point is, this way of eating doesn't isolate you socially. You can go to restaurants, you can enjoy meals with friends and family. You just make strategic choices within the options available. And here's something important: this way of eating doesn't feel like deprivation because you're not hungry. Unsaturated fats are satiating. Fiber fills you up. Protein keeps you satisfied. You're eating plenty of food, it's just different food. I've had patients tell me they were skeptical at first. They thought they'd miss butter and cheese and red meat at every meal, but after a few weeks, they didn't. They found new favorite foods. They discovered flavors they'd overlooked. They felt better. And that made it easy to continue. The research backs this up. Adherence to Mediterranean style dietary patterns is actually higher than adherence to low fat diets or very restrictive approaches. People stick with it because it's enjoyable and sustainable. That's critical. The best diet is the one you can maintain for years. And here's what's crucial to understand: this isn't a 30-day challenge or a temporary fix. This is a way of eating that becomes part of your life. It doesn't require willpower once it becomes habitual. You're not white knuckling your way through meals, resisting foods you love. You're genuinely enjoying food that happens to protect your arteries. I've watched this transformation in countless patients. The first week or two, there's adjustment. They're learning new recipes. They're finding new favorite foods. They're figuring out what works for their schedule and preferences. But by week 3 or 4, it starts feeling normal. By month 3, they're not thinking about it as much. They've found their rhythm. They know what to order at their favorite restaurants. They've discovered new foods they actually prefer to their old standbys. One patient told me she couldn't believe she used to eat bagels with cream cheese for breakfast every day. Not because she was judging herself, but because the oatmeal with nuts and berries she'd been eating left her feeling so much better throughout the morning. Another patient, a man in his 60s who'd been eating steak and potatoes several nights a week, discovered he actually loved Mediterranean food once he started exploring it. He felt lighter, had more energy, and his numbers improved dramatically. These aren't exceptional cases. This is the typical experience when people approach this as exploration rather than deprivation. You're not losing anything. You're gaining a way of eating that supports your health while still being satisfying and enjoyable. Now let's talk about practical tips for making this transition easier. Don't try to overhaul everything at once. That's overwhelming and unnecessary. Start with one meal. Maybe it's breakfast. Swap your usual breakfast for something that fits the pattern. Do that for a week or two until it feels automatic. Then move to another meal. Or start with oil. If you're currently cooking with butter or using butter on bread, switch to olive oil. That's one simple change that immediately moves you in the right direction. Once that feels normal, add another change. Keep it simple at first. You don't need complicated recipes. A piece of grilled fish, steamed vegetables with olive oil, and a simple salad is a complete protective meal. It takes 20 minutes to prepare. As you get more comfortable, you can explore more elaborate recipes if you want, but you don't have to. Stock your kitchen strategically. Keep olive oil, nuts, canned fish, frozen vegetables, dried legumes, and whole grains on hand. When these are your staples, building a heart-healthy meal becomes easy even when you're busy or tired. Batch cooking helps too. Make a big pot of lentil soup on Sunday. Roast a sheet pan of vegetables. Cook a portion of quinoa or brown rice. Now you have components you can mix and match throughout the week. Throw together a grain bowl with the quinoa, roasted vegetables, some chickpeas, and a tahini dressing. Easy, healthy, delicious. Learn a few go to meals that you can make without thinking. Everyone needs those: a salmon and vegetable sheet pan dinner, a big salad with whatever protein and toppings you have, a vegetable stir fry. Once you have 5 or 6 meals you can make easily, you're set. You can rotate through them and never feel like you're eating the same thing constantly. When you're grocery shopping, focus on the perimeter of the store. That's where the whole foods usually are. Produce, fish, nuts. Avoid the middle aisles full of processed foods as much as possible. Not that you can never have anything from those aisles, but they shouldn't be the foundation of your shopping cart. Read labels when you do buy packaged foods. Look at the ingredients, not just the nutrition facts. If the first ingredient is sugar or refined flour, it's probably not supporting your goals. If it's full of ingredients you don't recognize, same thing. Choose foods with short ingredient lists made of things you could buy separately. Don't be afraid of frozen vegetables. They're just as nutritious as fresh, often more so because they're frozen at peak ripeness. They're convenient. They don't go bad. They make it easy to always have vegetables on hand. Same with frozen fish. It's a great option and often less expensive than fresh. Involve your family if you live with others. This way of eating is healthy for everyone, not just people worried about heart disease. Kids benefit from eating more vegetables and unsaturated fats. Partners benefit. Everyone benefits. Make it a family approach rather than something you're doing alone while everyone else eats differently. That makes it so much easier to sustain. Now let's talk about timing and what happens inside your body when you eat this way, because understanding the mechanisms makes it easier to stay motivated. Within hours of eating a meal rich in unsaturated fats and fiber, your blood shows measurable changes. Let's say you eat that salmon with vegetables and olive oil for lunch. In the first hour after eating, your body begins breaking down the food. The fiber slows the absorption of nutrients, which prevents rapid spikes in blood sugar. The omega-3 fats from the salmon start being incorporated into cell membranes throughout your body, including in your artery walls. Triglycerides, which are fats in your blood, rise after any meal. But after a meal high in saturated fat and refined carbs, they spike dramatically. After a meal like the one I just described, they rise much more gently. This matters because high triglyceride levels after meals are associated with increased cardiovascular risk. Every time you eat, you're creating either a favorable or unfavorable internal environment. Inflammatory markers behave similarly. After a meal high in saturated fat, markers like C reactive protein and interleukin 6 tend to increase. After a meal rich in unsaturated fats and antioxidants, they stay lower. This is called postprandial inflammation, and it's increasingly recognized as an important factor in heart disease development. Your blood vessels themselves respond differently. After a meal high in saturated fat, endothelial function, which is the ability of your blood vessels to dilate properly, becomes impaired for several hours. This has been demonstrated in multiple studies. Researchers can actually measure the stiffness of arteries after different meals. A meal rich in unsaturated fats and polyphenols preserves endothelial function. Your blood vessels stay flexible and responsive. This is called the postprandial response, how your body reacts in the hours after a meal. And it matters because most of your day is spent in this postprandial state. You're not fasting most of the time. You're digesting and processing food. If you eat 3 meals a day, you're spending most of your waking hours in a postprandial state. So the quality of that state matters enormously. Think about it this way: a meal high in saturated fat and refined carbs creates a spike in triglycerides, triggers inflammatory responses, impairs endothelial function temporarily, and creates oxidative stress. Do that 3 times a day, every day for years, and you're creating chronic low grade inflammation and arterial damage. It's like repeatedly irritating a wound. It never has a chance to fully heal. A meal built around unsaturated fats and fiber creates a much gentler response. Triglycerides rise modestly. Inflammation stays low. Endothelial function remains intact. Oxidative stress is minimized. Repeat that pattern day after day, and you're supporting arterial health with every meal. You're giving your body what it needs to maintain and repair itself. This isn't immediate. You won't see your cholesterol drop overnight. Your arteries won't become perfectly healthy in a week. But within weeks to months, the changes become measurable. LDL cholesterol decreases. HDL, the protective cholesterol, often improves. Triglycerides stabilize, and inflammation markers start to decline. The research on this is extensive. Studies have measured these changes in people who switch from a typical Western diet to a Mediterranean style pattern. Within 8 weeks, significant improvements in lipid profiles are common. Within 6 months, people often see changes in markers of endothelial function and arterial stiffness. These are real, measurable physiological improvements. The long term data is even more compelling. We're not just talking about lab values, we're talking about actual outcomes. People who follow this pattern for years have significantly lower rates of heart attack, stroke, and cardiovascular death compared to those who don't. We're talking about 20, 30, even 40% risk reductions in some studies. The Lion Diet Heart study showed a 70% reduction in cardiac events in people following a Mediterranean style diet. That's substantial. That's life changing. And it's not just about living longer, it's about living better. People following this pattern consistently report more energy. They have better digestion, more stable moods, better sleep. These aren't side effects, they're benefits of eating in a way that supports your entire body, not just your arteries. When you reduce inflammation, stabilize blood sugar, and provide your body with the nutrients it needs, everything works better. Let me address some common concerns and questions because these come up constantly, and addressing them helps you feel more confident in making these changes. First, what about cholesterol in food? For decades, we were told to avoid eggs and shrimp because they contain dietary cholesterol. But for most people, dietary cholesterol has a minimal effect on blood cholesterol compared to saturated fat. Here's why. Your liver produces most of the cholesterol in your blood, somewhere between 70 and 80% of it. What you eat influences how much your liver makes and how your body processes it. But saturated fat is the bigger driver of elevated LDL cholesterol, not dietary cholesterol itself. Second, what about coconut oil? This one is really important because there's been a lot of misleading marketing around coconut oil. Despite claims that it's heart healthy, coconut oil is about 90% saturated fat. That's even higher than butter. The evidence does not support it as heart healthy. Multiple studies have shown that coconut oil raises LDL cholesterol in most people, just like other saturated fats. Stick with olive oil, avocado oil, and other unsaturated options. Third, can you eat too many nuts? This is a practical question. Nuts are calorie dense. An ounce of almonds, which is about 23 almonds, contains roughly 160 calories. If you're eating handfuls throughout the day without thinking about it, you could be adding several hundred extra calories. For most people, that's not a problem because nuts are incredibly filling. When people add nuts to their diet in controlled studies, they don't gain weight because they naturally eat slightly less of other things. But realistically, a reasonable portion is a small handful, about an ounce or maybe an ounce and a half. That's enough to get the benefits without overdoing calories. If you're someone who tends to mindlessly snack, pre portion your nuts into small containers or bags so you're not eating directly from a large jar. Fourth, what about red meat? The data on red meat is nuanced. Unprocessed red meat in moderation is probably fine for most people. The problem is processed meats like bacon, sausage, hot dogs, and deli meats, and large frequent servings of red meat. Processed meats contain nitrates, nitrites, and often a lot of sodium. They've been consistently associated with increased cardiovascular and cancer risk. If you enjoy red meat, having it once or twice a week in moderate portions, alongside plenty of vegetables, is unlikely to be harmful. Choose leaner cuts, don't char it. Pair it with fiber rich foods. Just don't make it the foundation of every meal. And minimize or avoid processed meats altogether. Fifth, and this is crucial, do you need to be perfect? Absolutely not. This is a pattern, not a rigid set of rules. If you follow this approach most of the time, let's say 80 or 90% of your meals, you'll see benefits. An occasional meal that doesn't fit the pattern isn't going to undo your progress. Consistency over time matters far more than perfection in any single meal. I've seen people stress about this to the point where it becomes counterproductive. They'll eat perfectly all week and then feel like they've failed if they have pizza on Saturday night. That's not how this works. Your body doesn't operate on a daily ledger where one imperfect meal cancels out six good ones. It responds to patterns over weeks and months. Another question I get frequently is about supplements. Do you need fish oil capsules? Do you need plant sterile supplements? For most people, food comes first. Supplements can be helpful in specific situations, but they're not a substitute for the dietary pattern itself. Let me break this down by specific supplements. Fish oil or omega 3 supplements. If you're eating fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines, or herring 2 or 3 times a week, you're getting plenty of omega 3 fatty acids. You don't need a supplement. But if you don't eat fish, whether because you don't like it, you have ethical concerns, or you're worried about contaminants, then an omega 3 supplement might be worth considering. Look for one that provides EPA and DHA, the two main omega 3s found in fish. If you're vegetarian or vegan, algae based omega 3 supplements are available, and they work just as well as fish oil. The dose matters. For general heart health, around 1 gram of combined EPA and DHA per day is reasonable. Some studies have used higher doses for people with existing heart disease, but that's something to discuss with your doctor. Quality matters too. Look for supplements that have been third party tested for purity and potency. Plant sterols. These are compounds found naturally in nuts, seeds, vegetable oils, and whole grains. They have a structure similar to cholesterol, and they compete with cholesterol for absorption in your gut. The result is that less cholesterol gets absorbed, which can lower LDL modestly. If you're eating nuts and seeds and using olive oil regularly, you're getting plant sterols from your diet. Supplements or fortified foods can provide additional plant sterols, and they can lower LDL by maybe 5 to 10%. That's helpful, but it's a modest effect. Fiber supplements. Soluble fiber, like psyllium, can help lower LDL cholesterol. But again, if you're eating vegetables, legumes, oats, and other whole plant foods, you're already getting plenty of fiber. A fiber supplement might be useful if you're constipated or if you're struggling to eat enough fiber rich foods. But it's not better than the fiber from food, which comes packaged with vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. The bottom line on supplements is this: the whole food provides a package of nutrients that work together. An omega 3 supplement gives you EPA and DHA, which are beneficial. But fatty fish also gives you protein, vitamin D, selenium, and other compounds that contribute to health. A plant sterile supplement might lower cholesterol slightly, but nuts provide sterols plus fiber, healthy fats, minerals, and antioxidants. The whole food is almost always superior. That said, if you're vegetarian or vegan and not eating fish, an algae based omega 3 supplement is reasonable. If you're unable to consume enough nuts or seeds due to allergies, you might benefit from targeted supplementation. If your doctor recommends a specific supplement based on your individual health situation, that's worth considering. Just don't rely on pills to replace real food. They can fill gaps, but they can't replicate the complexity of a healthy diet. What about exercise? I've focused primarily on nutrition today, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that physical activity is absolutely crucial for heart health. Exercise and diet work together, they're not interchangeable. You can't out exercise a terrible diet, and you can't fully optimize heart health with diet alone if you're completely sedentary. Exercise improves endothelial function, it lowers blood pressure, it helps control weight, it reduces inflammation, it improves insulin sensitivity, it raises HDL cholesterol. It can even help lower triglycerides. The benefits are extensive and well documented. You don't need to train for a marathon or spend hours in the gym every day. The research shows that moderate activity most days of the week is enough for substantial health benefits. We're talking about things like brisk walking, cycling, swimming, dancing, or any activity that gets your heart rate up and makes you breathe a little harder. The current recommendations are at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity per week, which breaks down to about 30 minutes on most days. The best exercise is the one you'll actually do consistently. If you hate running, don't run. Find something you enjoy. Maybe it's hiking, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's playing tennis or dancing or gardening. The activity itself is less important than doing it regularly. Stress management is another critical piece. Chronic stress promotes inflammation. It raises cortisol, a hormone that affects metabolism and cardiovascular function. It can lead to behaviors like emotional eating, neglecting exercise, or not sleeping well. All of these affect heart health. Finding ways to manage stress is essential. This looks different for everyone. For some people, it's meditation or deep breathing exercises. For others, it's spending time in nature. For some, it's social connection with friends and family. For others, it's creative hobbies like painting or music. Sleep is often overlooked, but it's profoundly important. Poor sleep is associated with increased cardiovascular risk. It affects blood pressure. It affects inflammation. It affects metabolism and hormone regulation. It affects decision making, which can lead to poor food choices and skipped exercise. Most adults need 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night. If you're consistently getting less than that, it's worth making sleep a priority. This might mean adjusting your schedule. It might mean improving your sleep environment, making sure your bedroom is dark and cool and quiet. It might mean limiting screen time before bed. It might mean addressing sleep disorders like sleep apnea, which is itself a cardiovascular risk factor. The quality of sleep matters too, not just the quantity. If you're waking up multiple times during the night, or if you're sleeping 8 hours but still feeling exhausted, that's worth investigating. Sometimes simple changes like adjusting meal timing or limiting caffeine help. Sometimes there's an underlying issue that needs medical attention. Social connection is another factor that doesn't get talked about enough in the context of heart health. People with strong social ties tend to have better cardiovascular outcomes than those who are isolated. The mechanisms aren't entirely clear, but it probably has to do with stress buffering, behavioral support, and the general health benefits of meaningful relationships. This doesn't mean you need a huge social circle. Quality matters more than quantity. Having a few close relationships where you feel supported and connected is what's important. This could be family, it could be friends, it could be a community group or a religious organization. The specifics matter less than the sense of belonging and support. So, heart health isn't just about food, it's about a lifestyle that supports your cardiovascular system in multiple ways. Nutrition is a huge part of it, probably the biggest single factor you can control. But physical activity, stress management, sleep, and social connection all contribute. They work together, they reinforce each other. When you're eating well, you often have more energy to exercise. When you're exercising regularly, you often sleep better. When you're sleeping well, you're better equipped to manage stress and make good food choices. It's all connected. Let me recap the key points. Build meals around unsaturated fats from sources like olive oil, nuts, seeds, and fatty fish. Include plenty of fiber rich vegetables and legumes. Choose moderate amounts of quality protein, minimize refined carbohydrates, incorporate polyphenol rich foods. This pattern reduces LDL cholesterol, lowers inflammation, protects the artery lining, and decreases cardiovascular risk. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. It's about making strategic substitutions that add up over time. And it's about understanding why these choices matter so you can make informed decisions without fear or confusion. I hope this has given you clarity. I hope it's taken some of the anxiety out of eating for heart health. And I hope you feel empowered to make changes that will protect your arteries for the long term. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing. I make videos like this regularly, breaking down complex health topics into clear, actionable information. And check out that longevity guide in the description if you want more detailed guidance. Thank you for watching. Take care of your heart. It's the only one you've got. I'll see you in the next one.